So around this time every year, I tend to strip the lower leaves of my Miscanthus giganteus. This particular one is one called Jubilaris, and it has this kind of interesting longitudinal stripe, as we call it. And it's something that I don't do every single year, but on the whole I do. If I've got a small clump like this one, and you probably consider that a large clump, I consider that quite small, it's worth doing. It's worth doing because it gives it a really neat look, and it changes its appearance completely at this time of year. Because what you get normally is, down below here, you get loads of sort of, let's find one that I've stripped off today. So you get this kind of look on them. And although that looks okay, it's nice to strip them off. Now, the good thing about it is what it does is it exposes this red on some of them. But basically, it exposes the green, but generally there's a red section below it as well that's about to expose. And it looks really interesting. Now, sometimes you get that coming out as a yellow. And I've had that before. And if we get more sunnier weather, we tend to find that that's yellow. But I like the red sort of colour. But if you can get red and yellow together, which some varieties do produce, then that's interesting as well. But what will happen pretty quick is that will actually just turn to a sort of a green colour over time. And then it may go into a different colour as autumn comes, but generally it goes into a green. So that's a really nice thing to do. And I think it looks cracking, to be honest. And it's not something you have to do. So I've got to point that out. It's not something you have to do. It's just geeks like me that do little jobs like that, because we just find it satisfying, or I find it satisfying to do that. Now, while we're here, we might as well talk about how we split these things. Now, firstly, we don't split them at this time of year, although we can if we're experienced. Now, I am going to split this one in the next week, because I've got a natural split there, as you can see. Right there is a natural split. And I'll be able to get that out quite nicely. I know what I'm doing. But if you're new to this, don't attempt it at this time of year. I would aim more for sort of midsummer. So when those leaves are away and probably 1 or 2 foot tall, if not a little bit taller, then you can then divide them, split them, just simply get a spade in there. Now, these are really tough, and I use a grafter's fork, which is really heavy and has got a lot of weight behind it. And I call that grafter Arnie. And I call it Arnie because I named it after Arnold Schwarzenegger. When he's involved, it's terminal. So it goes back to the Terminator. And I've had that tool a long time, and it's split a lot of grasses for me, and it makes light work of it. So, yeah, so don't try and attempt it at this time of year. It's pointless, especially if you're not used to doing these things. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you, and I'm going to do the experiment next year just to prove my point. It's not really an experiment, but it's just to show you. I'm going to leave a percentage of these canes, as we'll call them. I'm going to leave a percentage of them, and I'm going to see what happens. Well, I can tell you now what's going to happen, actually. On all these internodes here, another leaf will come out, and it'll send the leaves out on every single one of those, and it'll thicken the actual grass up. And from those, you can often take cuttings, or you can remove those when they get to about between 4 and 6 inches long, remove them and put them into either a gritty compost or put them in some water, let them root through, and then put them into compost after that if you've done it in the water. So that's a good way to increase your stock, because these can be a real problem to split. So it's looking really nice. I mean, the sounds we're getting today are just amazing, because we're getting the wind whistling through it, and I've been doing a bit more mulching, and it's, yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the rustling. Now, I've got another Miscanthus. Now, this is just giganteus. It's not really got going in this bed yet. It's still a baby. But basically, this is it. This is what we see. So by removing this section, we expose the underlayers. Now, because this is still a young one, we've not got much red going on at all, as you can see. So we've got nothing going on at all. So in a small plant like this, I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't even attempt to do this, because it's pointless. You're not really going to get any benefit from it. But if you're into that kind of thing, then do it. It's really satisfying, and it's kind of, I have bark therapy with silver birches when I strip the bark, and this is my leaf therapy. And believe it or not, I spent about an hour just stripping back all those today. And it's all right, you know, don't knock it till you've tried it. So it's looking good. Lovely grass to have, and as you can see it from any point in this garden, and it looks fantastic. So yeah, so if you've got a giganteus type in your garden, and I'm sure some of you have, get out there today and start stripping back them leaves. It'll give you great satisfaction, believe me. Okay, I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-da!